I'm already sick and tired of this flying meta, so if you are too, then this video is going to give you 5 tips on how to actually deal with the flying meta inside Marvel Rivals right now. Now, first of all, this meta is not great. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not enjoying it at all. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me as well when it comes down to this flying meta. There's been games where I've actually had like 3 or even all 4 of the flying heroes on the enemy team, and it's just not been a fun experience at all. And that is basically down to the fact that we don't have a flying Vanguard in this game to counter some of the damage or the output of these flying heroes. So hopefully they add that in, hopefully next season, because I don't want any more flying metas. And if we do, then we do need a flying tank, and please let it be War Machine, because that would be absolutely sick, and that is one of my favorite heroes in all of Marvel. So I'd like to see War Machine come to the game, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about the 5 tips to counter flyers. And we're going to start off with the first one, and what I've seen a lot of the high ranked players doing, and it doesn't matter which hero you select, and it doesn't matter which tank or DPS or support that you go, you kind of want to play on high ground as much as you can, especially if you don't have any flyers on your own team, because I know a lot of people don't like playing flying heroes, and that's myself included, by the way. I don't actually like playing the flying heroes because they just don't suit my playstyle. So if that is the case and pretty much everyone on your team kind of sits in that category, then you do need to try and play on top of high ground as much as you can. The reason for this is because you're trying to close the gap or close the distance between you and the enemy player who's flying, of course. Now, most of the tanks in this game, especially Doctor Strange, Magneto, some of them don't even have ranged attacks in the first place, like Hulk. Basically, you want to be as close as you can so that you can actually do damage to them in the first place, because, for example, Doctor Strange's attack is a very slow travel time, so by the time you've actually threw it, people can dodge this very quickly. Magneto's has only a 40-meter range, so if anyone's further than 40 meters away, then again, you cannot deal damage. And then the rest of the tanks, besides Penny Parker, I can think of, pretty much only deal melee damage, so we can't really hit the flyers with that either. So what you want to do is sit on high ground as much as you can and try and deal damage there. Now, obviously there's DPS heroes that are going to do a much better job, but like I said, this is an example of what you can do. And obviously if you are using DPS heroes, then please use this tip as well. Now, this works best on convoy maps. When you're playing domination points, there's never really high ground on the domination, which is a bit annoying, so that's just something to keep in mind. The second tip's a pretty obvious one, but I do want to mention it regardless, and that is a flyer versus flyer counter. Now, that means on your team, if you can, or if you can play it yourself, then play a flying hero. Obviously, that will help you in those 1v1 fights, because you'll also be flying around as well, which is pretty obvious. But don't always do this. The reason why I say that is because some people don't like playing flying heroes, as I just mentioned, and if you're not good with them, then you're going to struggle, because I've done the exact same thing when I was first starting off playing Iron Man. And basically, if the enemy player knows exactly what they're doing, they play this character day in, day out, you're coming up against them, you've just picked up the hero, there's no way you're going to win and beat them. So what you want to do is obviously practice with some flying heroes if you can. I think that's probably something you should be doing regardless, especially in this meta at the moment. But what you want to do is, like I said, counter it, or hopefully one of your teammates is good at a flying hero. Now, the easiest one to pick up actually is Ultron at the moment, because his primary deals so much damage, and his healing is pretty straightforward. Even if you're not using it correctly, you can still get some value out of it by just putting the healing on a teammate. So I do recommend trying out Ultron. He's probably the easiest one to use out of all the flying heroes, in my opinion. The rest involve a little bit more skill, especially since they're DPS heroes. But like I said, man, this flyer versus flyer counter does work if you are good and you're better than the enemy player. The next tip is hero selection. Now, this one's going to take a little bit of time to explain, because I'm going to go through DPS, Vanguards, and Strategist, and kind of how you want to play them as well. And I'll show you on screen which ones are the heroes that I think are the strongest at dealing with flyers, especially if you don't want to pick a flyer yourself, as I mentioned. So first of all, we have Hawkeye. Now, Hawkeye in the DPS section is the single best counter right now to any flying hero. Now, of course, he involves a lot of skill and a lot of really good aim, to be honest. So that is the reason why he's one of the best counters. And not only that, they've gave him one of the best tools to take out flyers as well. The fact that he can actually shoot through walls with his team up with Luna Snow. And Luna Snow is also a good counter, which we'll get on to in just a moment. But regardless, Hawkeye is the single best counter to ground flyers and to take them out in literally 1 to 2 shots. And that is absolutely insane if you really think about it. So if you can get good with a hero, or if you've got just really good aim, then use Hawkeye. That is the best tip I can give you. Now, when it comes to other DPS heroes, Hela is also really good. She got a buff to her overall ammo count, and I think this was to counter this kind of flying meta that we have. So Hela's a really strong choice as well. The amount of damage output she has is pretty solid, and also her secondary is pretty forgiving when you're trying to deal some damage to these flying heroes as well. Punisher is probably the easiest one to use when it comes to countering flying heroes. You just kind of shoot down range and shoot them down super easy. You still need to have semi-decent aim to use Punisher, but he's a lot more forgiving, especially if you're using his turrets and you're using his ultimate. Then you're going to do a lot of damage. And also you can get to high ground, like I mentioned, with the zip line. So Punisher is the perfect counter for kind of like the easier to use one. Not super easy by any means, but definitely a solid choice nonetheless. Now, when it comes to Vanguard Selection, this one is the toughest one because this category of heroes kind of made almost obsolete with this kind of flying meta, because none of these heroes have kind of ranged attacks that can deal with the flying heroes aside from Penny Parker. But Penny Parker is easily killed by flyers because the amount of damage she outputs is not that great, and then also she doesn't have much shields either, so that's just something to keep in mind. But I think the best counter is any Vanguard with wall abilities, right? So that's going to be Doctor Strange, Emma Frost, Groot, Magneto. Those are your picks. Now, triple Vanguard with wall Vanguards would actually work amazing against these flying heroes. By the way, I just do want to mention that. Not that we probably should play triple Vanguard, but it would definitely work as well. So I just want to throw that in there. If anyone likes playing tank, then that is a really solid counter. The only issue is you just don't have the range attacks to back it up, right? You can offer the protection, which is basically what I'm coming to, and you do want to have your shields up pretty much 90% of the time. Every time it comes off cooldown, you kind of want to have it up straight away. People want to output damage as a Vanguard and provide other value as well, other than just constantly putting up their shields. But I think right now, the way this meta is, you just kind of need to have your shields up all the time to block that incoming damage. And the thing is, the flying heroes can easily get line of sight around what your shields are as well and attack you that way too. So you just kind of want to have them up as often as possible. When it comes to strategists, we actually have some quite good counters to flying heroes, and I think the strategist should be the focus on taking out the flying heroes, in my opinion, because most of them have really good range attacks. Rocket's got his gun, which is actually pretty solid. You do need to track pretty well, but if the flyer's stationary, then Rocket's gun's pretty good. Luna Snow is absolutely insane, by the way, at taking out flyers. She's probably like the best strategist at taking out flyers, in my opinion. Jeff, with his damage on his primary now, is actually a pretty solid pick as well. Probably one of the easier ones to use against flyers to deal a bit of damage. You're probably not going to get tons of kills with it. Invisible Woman has got great CC control to ground the flyers with her bubbles and push and pull them as well, which I think is pretty solid. When it comes to Cloak and Dagger, Cloak's attack's pretty obvious because it's auto aim. If you get close enough, you can use it. But really, it's Dagger's attack that we're going to be using here most of the time because it has the further range. And also, it kind of heat seeks enemies behind cover as well. It kind of bends round cover, which is good if the enemy flyers are using cover to their advantage. Then you can get a little bit of damage done to them whilst they're behind cover. It's not tons of damage, but it is decent enough. And then we have Adam Warlock as well, who's another solid pick to deal damage at range. Very similar to Hela in the way that works, but just doesn't deal as much damage, unfortunately. The next tip is play near cover as much as you can. Now, this kind of only goes for convoy maps. If you're playing on domination, then good luck with this, by the way. You might want to run triple Vanguard. But like I said, play near cover as much as you possibly can, because your Vanguard shields are not going to protect you for an unlimited amount of time, right? That's just something you need to keep in mind and understand throughout the game. When the shields are up, then obviously you're free to attack. When your shields are down, you do need to play a bit more conservative if you're playing as a DPS or a strategist. Try to take out the flying heroes, as we've mentioned. So use cover as often as you possibly can. Try and stay behind cover, pick your shots well, and take out the flyers that way. They're not going to have as much cover as you have on the ground, and that's obviously one good thing about the way the maps are designed. So just use your cover to your advantage and peek out when you need to. shoot the flyers, and even gain a flank angle if you need to try and take them out. And I think that's what's really good about the way the maps are designed as well, like I mentioned. The last and final tip is that you don't need to kill the enemy flying heroes, right? You just need to do enough damage to them to make them either reposition or go back and try and get healed or find a health pack, or just kind of leave the action that they're doing right now. And that's something that you do need to keep in mind, because you don't always need to chase them down and kill them, right? That you don't need to do that. You just need to kind of stop them doing the action that they are doing. Now, what's really good about the way this game is right now, until we probably get more flying strategists in this game, is that it is a little bit harder to heal flying heroes right now. The only one that can do it really easily is Ultron, because he has a flying strategist. But the other strategist in the enemy team is obviously not going to be a flyer, so that's something that you do need to understand when playing the game. And when they're trying to heal their teammate, it's not going to be as easy, so they do need to kind of leave their position to try and heal up their teammates. So that's just something to keep in mind. Or if they are the flying hero, then they're going to need to leave their position to go and either find a health pack or get healed up in their backline. So like I said, as long as you're doing your job and putting that damage down range and making them move away from your team. So there we have it. That is all the tips I can give you to counter the flying meta inside Marvel Rivals right now in the current state of the game, until we get a flying Vanguard. And like I said, hopefully it's War Machine, because that's what I want to see in this game. But up until we get that, this is how we're going to need to play the game to counter these flying heroes. If you enjoyed this video and this helped you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as we're going to be making tons more Marvel Rivals content. And we want to reach our goal of 20k subscribers by the end of this year. And thank you very much for watching.